You know, when we think about these huge figures in organized crime, these warlords, really, there's a certain image that comes to mind.
Right, the classic Scarface archetype.
Exactly. Someone who is just, physically huge, a brawler who fought his way up from nothing.
But that's not what we're looking at today. Not at all.
No. Today, we're talking about a man they called the Sun King.
Solkongen in Danish.
Yeah.
And that's a direct reference to Louis XIV. It wasn't a compliment either. It was about absolute unquestioned power.
And this man, Jim Tinndahn, or Big Jim, well, he's the paradox that really hooked me for this deep dive. Here's a guy with spinal arthritis so bad he had to take early retirement as a mechanic.
And yet,
he becomes one of the most powerful, most feared outlaw bikers in all of Europe and Asia.
it's an incredible story of, well, it's really about organizational expansion. We're going to look at how a dyslexic auto mechanic from a completely normal working-class family built an empire of 1,600 bikers, took on the Hells Angels, and basically started the Nordic Biker War.
And the scale is just wild. I mean, we're talking anti-tank missiles and peace treaties on live television.
But it's also a story about the inevitable fall. It's about what happens when that absolute rule starts to crumble.
So let's dig in. We've got biographical records, a ton of crime reporting. Where does the story of Big Jim even start? He certainly doesn't sound like he was born for this life.
Far from it. No, it starts in North Zealand, Denmark. He was born Jan Leif Tinndahn back in 1961. And if you look at his early life, there's nothing there. Nothing that points to future international gang president.
The sources describe it as totally ordinary, factory worker parents.
Correct. And school was a real struggle for him. He was dyslexic. And, back in the 60s and 70s, that wasn't always understood. People described him as quiet, introverted even.
See, that's the part that gets me. An introvert. You just don't picture an introvert leading a biker army. How does that even happen?
Well, I think that's the key, right? It suggests he had to learn a different kind of power. It wasn't about being the loudest person in the room. He learned to be strategic.
He started as a mechanic, right, after an early interest in mopeds.
He did. But then came the first major obstacle. His health.
The spinal arthritis.
And it was severe. Severe enough that he was forced into early retirement from his job.
Yeah.
So you have this young guy, not even out of his teens really, who can't do manual labor. He's not going to win a fist fight. But in his mind, he's looking for something more.
He's looking for a place to belong. A tribe.
Exactly. So against his parents' wishes, he joins his first club, the 666 Club, at just 17. But the real strategic thinking, that came a bit later.
Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. He joins a group called the Bandidos Motorcycle Club. And at the time, they were a support club for the Hells Angels. What does that actually mean in this world?
Think of it like a minor league team. You're a vassal, you do the dirty work, you show loyalty, and in exchange, the big club, the Hells Angels, gives you protection and lets you exist.
Right, you're the little brother. But Tinndahn didn't want to be the little brother.
Not for long. In 1988, the Morticians split off. And you have to understand, in the early 90s, the Hells Angels were on a mission. They wanted a total monopoly. They were crushing smaller clubs.
So it was a join or die situation.
Or in this case, get eaten or find a way to fight back. So Tinndahn, who's leading the Morticians now, he does something smart. He merges with other clubs that the Angels had rejected. They form the Undertaker's MC.
I do love the branding there. From Morticians to Undertakers, very consistent.
Yes. But they were still just a local Danish club. They couldn't stand up to the global might of the Hells Angels on their own. They were isolated.
So he needed a bigger shield.
He needed a nuclear deterrent. So in 1992, he makes his big power move. He reaches out to the Bandidos leadership in the U.S. and in France.
He's basically shopping for a franchise.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
Patching over to a club like the Bandidos gives you instant global recognition. It says, if you mess with us here in Denmark, you're messing with thousands of us all over the world.
But it worked.
It worked. December 17th, 1993, the Undertakers officially become Bandidos. And just like that, the classic American rivalry between the Angels and the Bandidos had arrived in Scandinavia.
But the Angels didn't just accept that, did they? There had to be some rules of engagement.
Oh, there were. The Hells Angels basically said, okay, fine, you can exist, but you stay in your 2 Danish chapters. That's it. Don't expand.
Stay in your lane.
Exactly. This is your tiny piece of the market. Don't get greedy.
And Tinndahn, of course.
He had no intention of staying in his lane. Barely a month later, January 1994, he makes a move that lights the fuse on the entire thing. He makes a club called the Morbids MC in Helsingborg, Sweden. a probationary Bandidos chapter.
Wait, Helsingborg? Why is that so significant?
Because it's in Sweden. It's across the water. It was the territory of the Malmö Hells Angels. He didn't just step on their toes, he built a fortress in their front yard.
It was a deliberate provocation.
It was a declaration of war. And the Malmö Angels saw it that way immediately. That was the spark. That was the start of the Nordic Biker War.
And let's be clear, when we say war, we're not talking about fistfights.
No. We are talking military-grade weapons, car bombs, anti-tank rockets fired into clubhouses, shootouts in public, at airports. The violence just exploded across all of Scandinavia.
So what about the leadership back in America? Surely the Bandidos mother chapter in Texas didn't want this kind of heat.
They hated it. This is where you really see Tinndahn style. The American leadership of both clubs tried to shut it down. They knew war is bad for business. It brings the police. It stops the cash flow.
But Tinndahn just ignored them.
He did more than ignore them. He actively undermined them. The sources are clear. The mother chapter in Houston could not control him. He just kept escalating, kept supporting retaliation. He was a rogue general.
The confidence on this guy. Or maybe the arrogance.
It's a fine line. And in the middle of all this chaos, his own power just skyrocketed. In 1995, he moves to that frontline chapter in Helsingborg and gets named the Bandidos European president.
And that's where the nickname comes from, right? Solkongen.
Yes. The Sun King. His own members gave him that name after Louis XIV. It meant he ruled by decree. There were no votes. There was no debate. It was just Jim's way.
It's an incredible image. A quiet, dyslexic guy with a bad back now ruling like an absolute monarch. But wars are costly for everyone.
And terrible for business. By summer 1997, the war had dragged on for 3 years. Nobody was winning. Both sides were bleeding money, members, and the police pressure was immense.
So they finally decided to talk.
They did. And Tinndahn was actually a key figure in starting the peace process, which leads to one of the most surreal moments in modern Danish history. September 25, 1997.
Press conference.
A live televised press conference. You got Jim Tinndahn on one side and a Hells Angels president, Bent Svane Nielsen, on the other.
Two guys have been trying to kill each other for years.
Sitting side by side under the hot studio lights, shaking hands on primetime television and announcing the war was over.
I mean, can you imagine seeing that on the news? It gives them this air of legitimacy, like they're heads of state ending a conflict.
It absolutely did. But the really amazing part wasn't the handshake. It was the secret treaty they signed.
A secret treaty. A literal written document.
Yes. They didn't just agree to stop shooting. They carved up the criminal underworld. The sources say they divided territory right down to specific bars, cafes, and nightclubs. This pub is ours. That strip club is yours.
That's pure cartel behavior. It's market collusion.
100%. And this was Tinddahn's golden age. He became a media personality, going on debate shows, arguing against laws, trying to ban biker clubs. He presented himself as this reasonable, misunderstood leader.
The untouchable boss. But the police were always watching.
Always. Which brings us to a raid in 2008 that shows you just how seriously the authorities took him.
The one in Helsingborg.
Yes. The police raided the clubhouse where he was living. But they didn't just show up with a warrant. They brought a Plaza Sandcat, an armored car.
An armored car? For what?
He was accused of stealing 3 racing motorcycles.
Wait, they brought a tank to arrest a guy for motorcycle theft.
It shows you what they expected. They thought any attempt to arrest him could turn into a full-blown firefight.
And he beat the charge, didn't he?
He did. He claimed he was actually trying to return the bikes. He was acquitted. Teflon Jim.
It seemed like nothing could touch him.
For a while. But his downfall wasn't a bullet or a prison sentence. It was something much more mundane and much more tragic. It was a car crash.
Right. This is where the story really takes a turn. October 7, 2012.
Tinndahn is driving his Audi Q7 in Malmö about 2 in the morning, coming home from a party. He crashes.
He's okay, mostly. Minor injuries.
He is, but his passenger, Carlos Ackerson, a fellow bandido, a brother, he suffers catastrophic brain damage. He goes into a coma.
That's just awful.
It gets worse. Police test Tinndahn, and they find traces of cocaine and THC in his system. But the investigation drags on. And while it's dragging on, Carlos Ackerson dies from his injuries in 2014.
So what does Tinndahn do in this world where loyalty is supposed to be everything?
Well, this is where the Sun King myth really shatters. After Ackerson dies, the police want to talk to him again, and he disappears. He just vanishes in June 2014. They suspect he fled the country.
So the man who stared down the Hells Angels ran from a DUI charge.
That's what it looks like. He didn't resurface until February 2015.
And he was convicted.
He was.
Yeah.
December 2015. Aggravated drunk driving, gross negligence, grievous bodily harm. He got 9 months in prison.
Which seems surprisingly light.
Well, it got even lighter. He appealed. And in 2016, the appeals court threw out the main drunk driving charge on a technicality. The sentence was reduced to probation and a small fine.
Wow, so no jail time for the crash.
No, but the damage was done. The aura of invincibility was gone. You can't be the king when you're seen as responsible for the death of one of your own men through simple negligence.
And his time at the top was already over by then, wasn't it? He'd already stepped down.
He had. In June 2012, just a few months before the crash, he resigned as president.
Do we know why? Was he pushed out?
The sources are quiet on that, but look at the timing. In 2011, the entire global Bandidos organization fractured. The Western chapters broke away from the Eastern ones. The empire he built was cracking.
So his reign was ending as his world was shrinking.
Exactly. But you can't deny the scale of what he built. For 18 years, he oversaw the opening of 130 chapters. He was one of the 3 most powerful bandidos on the planet.
A hell of a long way from that mechanic's garage. So what's he doing now? Just gone.
Mostly. He's back in Denmark, keeps a very low profile.
But he did make one recent appearance.
A brief one. In August 2020, the Bandidos were having issues with a rival club, Sadudara. They held a show of force, and Tinndahn showed up. A rare appearance.
Just a little reminder.
Maybe, but he's not the Sun King anymore.
So when you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway from the story of Jim Tinndahn?
For me, it shows that even these outlaw groups are bound by the rules of politics and business. To build what he built, Tinndahn couldn't just be a thug. He had to be a CEO, a strategist, a diplomat. He negotiated treaties, managed franchises.
It was a corporation that just happened to be criminal.
Precisely. But there's a deeper irony in his fall.
Which is?
He survived it all. He survived the war with the Hells Angels, the assassination attempts, the police raids with armored cars. He beat every single external threat they threw at him.
But in the end, he couldn't beat himself.
That's it. His legacy wasn't sealed in a blaze of glory. It was sealed by a moment of bad judgment on a quiet road in Malmö, a preventable accident.
It's a powerful lesson on the illusion of control. You can build an empire, command a loyal army, but you can never, ever outrun your own human failings.
And the bill for your mistakes, it always comes due, one way or another.
And that's where we will leave it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening. We will catch you on the next one.